the living legend of hair loss, the top gun maverick of hair loss. It is true. I don't even know if you'll be able to hear me over the sound of the thunder here and the distractions of the lightning there. We need to basically take a vote here. We need to really figure out how we feel, how we perceive reality. I am, of course, referring to a video I shot right outside there. That was convenient that it lit up with lightning just then and again. But I made a video out there this weekend. It was called, "Do I Actually Have Diffuse Thinning? My New Short Haircut." Because I've always said, looks can be so deceiving when it comes to hair loss, especially when your hair starts to thin out on top. It's a matter of how long is your hair versus are you outside? Are you directly in sunlight? Are you inside a building but under bright lights? There's so many variations that can really make your hair seem thinner or make you seem like you're further along the balding process than you actually are. So I'm ultimately making this video to say, how about I just leave it up to you? Like, let you vote. Determine my reality. Because it seems that no one can really agree. It seems like my audience in the comments is kind of split. Some of you say, well, it's not diffuse thinning. Your hair is thinning, it's thinner on top, but that's not diffuse thinning, Nick. You take a look at this link and this is diffuse thinning. And others say, no, clearly your hair, if I can see your scalp, then that's diffuse thinning. It's clearly thinner on top than it is on the sides. So I'm gonna do a little turnaround. I'm gonna do it closer to the camera and then further away. And let you be the judge. Well, here's one. I'm trying to like stand a normal distance away. All right. So, I mean, this is about 5 feet away. This right here, I'd say it's about 3 feet away. And if you want to get real up close and personal, we can get about 1 foot away. And yes, you can see my scalp through there, but I don't know, does seeing one scalp really define diffuse thinning? So it's almost like if there were a scale, a spectrum of exactly what is diffuse thinning. Can you define it and know diffuse thinning when you see it? I mean, because ultimately I think you would have to be able to say, okay, that's diffuse thinning, that's not. I mean even when we're looking at the Norwood's scale, which is not a perfect thing, it's just a very basic thing for us to look at, but when we compare what would be a number 3 vertex, I mean, that's when it kind of has this sandy look to it. Like, they have these little grains, like, to determine that. I mean, I don't have that going on. I don't have it so bald where you only see specks growing through. It's just that it's basically, I'd say, uniform thinner on top, which is quite common for men who even never go bald. It's common that men who keep hair in their 40s and 50s especially, I'll notice, I can see if you're looking for it that it is thinner, but maybe most people wouldn't really think that. Maybe most people would just say, you have such fine hair, you have such thin hair, and that may be a nice thing that the ladies who've been cutting my hair recently have been saying. They say, yeah, well, your hair is so fine, it's so thin. I think that can be different than thinning hair or balding. I think there might be somewhere along the spectrum. I think we should come to an overall understanding of diffuse thinning compared to just thinning. As I'm looking at all these, that's because and even on the spectrum, I mean, I think it's interesting that I'm even making this video, because for the first couple of years of me having this channel talking about hair loss, I self-identified as a Norwood 3. But thanks to one viewer who made a video in response, in fact, if you go on YouTube and type in Nick Shell, most of the things will be my videos, but then there's this random guy, I don't even know if he still watches my channel, but he made a great case for the fact that I'm not actually Norwood 3. How I identify is maybe a Norwood 2.5 with thinner hair on top. Whether that means it's diffuse thinning or not, whether that's vertex, I don't know. That's what I would place myself. But I could easily be wrong. I've been wrong before. I'm wrong often, and I think it's important to assume at least half the time you might be wrong, because how else are you going to learn anything? I make fun of the concept. So many younger guys, even if they don't say it out loud, the way they think is, well, don't you think if I were wrong I would know it? Of course not. You know, and that's the sign of you becoming more mature and emotionally intelligent, that you start realizing, hey, maybe I am wrong. And if I'm wrong, that's an opportunity for me to learn how to be right and to therefore be more successful. But again, the video I'm referring to is, do I actually have diffuse thinning? So this video you're watching is basically the sequel or follow-up or spin-off, whatever you want to call it. But I want to look at one of these comments in particular. I'm going to share this one from Dave Cutler, because I think this really defines the overall feeling of that video, where I went outside in the sunlight with the new short hair. Here's what Dave Cutler said, quote, "I don't really see any diffuse thinning in your crown or front area. To me, it looks like your hair has overall thinned out a little bit, or maybe that your hair density has always been like that. Nick, was your hair density any different back when you weren't losing your hair?" End quote. So my answer is, yeah, it used to be thicker than this. It wasn't until my 30th birthday that I looked in the mirror and saw that it was thinner up here. Which means if it took me that long to notice it, there's a good chance it was already that way closer to age 30. I was married when I was 27, and looking back in those pictures, I don't see any signs of thinning in my wedding pictures from when I was 27. But I would say somewhere between me getting married at 27 and my 30th birthday, it started thinning out in my late 20s. So ultimately, yeah, I like his comment. I think it really puts it, especially when he says, to me it looks like your hair has overall thinned out a bit, but that's not necessarily diffuse thinning. So you be the judge. And you know how I like to do these voting sessions. What I like to do is I like for you to just leave a comment and explain how you feel, explain what you see. But I think it's also good on top of that to have a thumbs up, thumbs down system. I think the more natural way that makes sense in my head is, if you believe I don't actually have diffuse thinning, but instead my hair is thinner on top, but not actually diffuse thinning, I wouldn't actually fall in that category, then say it's a thumbs up. Like, Nick, you're all right, your hair's all right, it's thinning, but it's not diffuse thinning. But if you definitely feel that this constitutes as diffuse thinning, give me a thumbs down. I'm Nick Shell. It's impossible to hurt my feelings or disrespect me or anything like that, because I don't give you that kind of power over me. I'm gonna just, I don't know, let me just like stand further back, get a couple different angles there. I want to make this as fair as possible. I just don't want to be like this the whole time and like giving you a false concept of that. But I think this is very important to vote and to sort this out, because I think it's going to help carry the direction of this channel. It's important to me that this channel itself, and I as the host, serve as a host in which you can see a character arc, that this channel is ultimately always evolving, even though the running joke is that basically I'm doing the same 20 videos over and over, but maybe with a little bit more insight each time. And I think too, especially when it's coming from people who are new to the channel and they're asking these questions, it sheds that concept in a new light, is what I think. And I think especially if you are new to the hair loss community, and by the way, all that means is that you're watching these videos. It doesn't mean you're actually losing my hair. And my perception of it, most of my viewers have zero hair loss. And I've said this before recently, the worst thing about hair loss is when it doesn't actually happen. Imagine spending hours of your life, years of your life, worrying about going bald, because it's this thing that's looming over, man, am I gonna go bald? But even if you never go bald, the fact that you spent time worrying about it, watching my videos, that in theory is a bigger problem than the guy who's actually going bald and learns to deal with it early on. So there you go. Is this diffuse thinning? If you say no, it's not, then you give it a thumbs up. Say, Nick, it's just thinning, but it's not diffuse thinning. But if you say, Nick, that is definitely diffuse thinning, then give it a thumbs down. And again, leave a comment to really explain exactly how you feel on that. Comments belong right here.